Hi, and welcome to our Worried About Nothing podcast. Today, we thought we would talk about fear and how often what you fear is just fear itself. It's not an actual concrete thing. I'm Kim.
And I'm Danielle.
And welcome to our podcast. Hi there. So interesting topic today, fear. It's quite a relevant thing. Excuse my brain today because it's late for me, so I'm starting to fall asleep. So fear is very topical. And I'm just finding it quite interesting. I had an experience last weekend where I was really, really fearful of something. It was actually going to be, I was going to be talking on my teacher Aratima's call and interviewing her and talking in front of potentially several hundred people live, which I really don't do. I never do public speaking. I've always been very afraid of it. And especially speaking, in front of real people is terrifying, has always been terrifying to me. So leading up to that event, my body was going through all the physiological reactions of fear. There was kind of desire to vomit very strongly came up, palpitations and sweats and complete mind blank and all of those things. And even though I knew it was just a thought, that it was just fear, it was just a thought, my body still reacted very, very strongly to it. And we got to the call and I was supposed to get on the call first, do an introduction, welcome Aratima onto the call. I got on the call, nobody could hear me. Massive technical difficulties. So Aratima then had to get on the call, introduce herself, which kind of, was not as planned. And then we were going to segue, we'd sort of got a bit of a loose structure together. We were going to then segue into having a bit of a chat, me asking some questions. And instead she said, so Kim, what do you want to talk about? Or something along those lines. And sort of in between me starting to get on the call and realizing that nobody could hear me, and Aratima then asking me a question that I wasn't expecting, somewhere in between those two moments, I just had a real physical body understanding that what I was fearing didn't exist. It was just the fear. It was just a thought. It was just a concept, because there was nothing to fear. Because first of all, this call had nothing to do with me. It was all about Aratima. It was introducing her Wisdom Life School. And so I was just there to, ask questions or bounce off or whatever it might be. And secondly, I realized that it was so irrational to fear something that hadn't happened yet and that wasn't in any way going to actually injure me, So if I said the wrong thing, nobody's going to appear and stab me in the face or anything, it wasn't kind of like something bad was going to happen physically. So I had this realization that very deep in my body, in my cells, it felt like that there was nothing to fear, and it was just fear, that it was just causing this illusion, and that I'd had this irrational fear all my life that had really crippled me in some ways, because it stopped me from doing a lot of things, so speaking up in meetings or when opportunities arose to talk in front of a group, just shying away from it in terror because the fear stopped me, fear in inverted commas. And also, I think it was really good that this happened with Aratima, partly, I'm sure, intentionally on her part, even though it wasn't, intentional in the sense that everything works out perfectly, but because in some ways she's the most terrifying person to speak to, because she is such purity that you just, I just turn into a bit of a gibbering wreck around her. It's kind of like, hi, ooh, giggle, or something silly, But it just, when that fear, inverted commas again, melted away, I think I spoke in coherent sentences. I think I said things that made sense. I'm not sure. I haven't listened back to it, but I felt very calm. And I think it was so, it was kind of enjoyable in a funny sort of way, in that when you don't fear something, you're just there and you're just present with it. So whatever happened, happened. And I don't know what it seemed like from the outside perspective, but in some ways that doesn't matter, because it's what my experience was, in that, I wasn't fearful. I had no idea what to say, but things just came through, I think. I don't know. But it was just a very important moment for me, because I kind of realized that if I can talk to Aratima with technical difficulties in front of possibly several hundred people live and, several hundred more listening to the recording, and kind of go by the seat of my pants with no plans or anything, then I can talk to anyone in public. I can say anything in public, because that would have been the most terrifying experience ever, So compared to that, everything else is easy. So that was really nice, because fear of public speaking has always been, well, I guess it's quite a big thing for everyone or a lot of people, but it's been massive for me. But now it's kind of like looking back on it, I think, well, what was I so afraid of? nothing happened, and that nothing bad happened. I didn't die. Nobody cut my head off. It was it was fine. So that was really freeing in a lot of ways, and in another way, I sort of saw it from a wider perspective, in that it was very clear that what I'd feared was just the fear, and that so often what we fear is the fear, because fear is of something that, generally speaking, hasn't happened yet. So it's all a figment of your imagination, because you're imagining it, you're conjuring it. It's very different to being in the moment when something's happening and you're scared. That's a different emotion. But fear of something future is pointless, because you don't know what's going to happen. And you're just making up a scenario, and you're creating it so strongly that you almost make it happen if you're really clinging onto it, So that was great. That was a wonderful moment. That was very freeing in a lot of ways. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you were able to kind of meet the fear in that way. And I don't know if you can tell, like looking back, maybe what happened in between those two moments, right? Having the technical difficulties, but then actually getting onto the call. Can you, I don't know, I guess, see anything that occurred that kind of made that shift for you out of being fearful into, I'm totally fine?
Well, I guess in some ways, when you fear something, you run through all the scenarios of what could potentially happen that could make it, worse. And this is one of the things that could potentially have made it worse. I don't get on the call. I have technical difficulties. It doesn't go to plan. And so that started happening, and I was like, oh, right, okay, so that scenario has happened. And then this calm just fell over me, and it was just kind of like, well, so it's happened. It's fine. Aratima's fully capable of carrying this on her own. She doesn't actually need me to be there. And if I get on the call, I get on the call. And it was kind of like, it was sort of as if part of me was going, now, do I need to feel embarrassed about this? And I was like, no, I don't, because I don't feel embarrassed. I don't feel anything. I just feel very, very calm about this. And so I guess maybe it was just a falling out of a thought, because the fear is just the thought. And so I'd been looking at that thought and going, okay, let's examine this thought from all angles, all facets. What could go wrong? What could this? What could that? And then when I let go of the thought, basically, I just fell back into, I guess, nothingness. And it was just kind of like, well, everything's perfect as it is. This has nothing to do with me. None of this has anything to do with me. If my, spiritual practice is to surrender everything to God, then how can I hold on to anything? Because I'm surrendering it, so it's got nothing to do with me. So if I'm open to words coming through or divine inspiration coming through, then great. That would be wonderful if that happens. But it's just, there's no room for thought in these situations. So I guess that's what happened. Just the thought popped, or my perception of the thought changed, or kind of the truth just fell more deeply into the body, as opposed to knowing it with the mind, because I did all the way through the week when I was having palpitations and, feeling very, very nauseous. I did know it was a thought. It's like, yeah, I know this is just a thought. I know I'm fearing this. I know nothing bad's going to happen. You can tell yourself all these things in your mind, but it's only when you really embody it, or you really know it, that it actually becomes solidified, and it did. It's like, great. And I could have just recited something in Hebrew. I've no idea, but I spoke. So it's kind of like,
So do you think, like, having the technical difficulties to start things off, it was almost like a good thing, because it's like, all right, well, one of the bad things happened and I'm still okay.
I guess so. I mean, I think it just worked out perfectly, as these things do, as everything does, really. Yeah, it's funny, because I didn't know for a while that nobody could hear me, because I was introducing her to myself. Nobody could hear me. But I was doing a beautiful introduction.
No.
Until she went, Kim, are you there? And it was like, oh shit, nobody can hear me.
Oh no.
So that was quite funny. But yeah, it's a strange thing, isn't it? I mean, I think Aratima speaks of this, doesn't she? She says that, fear is a luxury emotion, in that it means that you have the time to wallow in the fear, or the time to create these little fear scenarios and stories, and again, it's just, in some ways, I'm seeing now that fear of things, more clearly seeing now, or maybe more clearly feeling, embodying feeling, that when you fear something, you're in the mind, or you are in a space of wallowing in some way, or you have that luxury of having options, because being present in the moment, which I'm trying to do more and more every day and trying to go deeper into it, means that there is no room for thought and there is no room for fear, and there's no room for anything but now, this split second, because anything apart from the split second that you're in doesn't exist, in the sense that it's not in this moment. So if I wander off into the luxury of, oh my God, I'm really terrified about this thing that hasn't happened yet, that might never happen, but I'm going to be really, really scared about it, and I'm going to put my body through that physiological response, then snap out of it, smack myself in the face, because it's wallowing. It's in some ways it's self-indulgence, so, and it's quite pertinent to everything that's going on now, with all this COVID bullshit stuff that people are so fearful around. It's like, even today I was waiting at a bus stop, and I was standing on the pavement next to the bus stop, and it's a fairly narrow pavement, but it's wide enough for two people, to pass each other. So I'm standing in the middle, and there was nobody around. So it's not like I was, purposely standing in the middle of the pavement going, I'm standing here blocking everyone. This guy walks down and he stops and looks at me. And I kind of, when you catch somebody out the corner of your eye. And so I looked at him, and he said, right, you need to move to one side or the other. And I said, and bear in mind, this is a pavement in Hampstead, so it's very leafy. It was by the Heath. So there's probably, maybe a metre of pavement. But then on the other side, there's like 1.5 meters of just bare earth, where before it kind of gets to woodland. So there's plenty of room for him to pass. But he said, so you need to stand on one side or the other. And I could tell that it was because he was fearful of coming too close to me. And it was kind of like, well, you can pass me with, a very wide arc here. It's not like I'm blocking you in any way. But there was just fear radiating off him. And I just sort of didn't feel anything, but words came out of my mouth, and they kind of made me laugh, which was bad, because then I started laughing. But because he said, you move to one side or the other. And I said, oh, am I that terrifying? Am I really scary? Am I scaring you? He went, oh my God. And he looked really, really shocked. So I started laughing. And I said, really, I'm that terrifying? You're that scared that you want me to move? And I didn't say it antagonistically, it's just these words came out. And he looked absolutely horrified. So I started laughing even more. And I went, okay. And I sort of moved out of the way, and then I bowed. And I don't know why I bowed.
No, I love it. Oh my God. It sounds so perfect, And
he just scuttled past. But I just thought, oh my God, you're so terrified that anything within 2 meters, you can't cross somebody on a pavement with the 2 meter space, because no pavement's that big, so.
Right.
It's just
Wow.
ridiculous. Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't know. I love experiences like that, because I feel like you said, it just moves through you, and then it's going to impact that person in whatever way it impacts them. Who knows what happened right after he scuttled past you and moved on with the rest of the day.
I saw him later, because I got on the bus a split second after he put past, and we drove past him
later. Okay.
And he was looking really confused and frowning. And I kind of looked at him, and he caught my eye, and I went, hi!
Did you really? Oh my God.
And he just stopped, and you could tell he was going, I have no idea what's happening here, but this is really weird. And then I laughed all the way home.
I have to say, if I was in his position, I probably would have thought it was pretty weird too. Wow, though, I don't know. It's just, I don't really have any words for it. It really feels just so alive, just so real in the moment. And like you said, the words just came out. It's not like you thought it, you weren't doing it antagonizingly, which I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is, with letting God and life move through you, is that there's no motivation, there's no ego attached to it. So, and it'll scramble people, like you've expressed in the past too, and other interactions that you've had. And it just knocks things loose in people. And they have no idea what to do with it. And I don't know, there's just something very kind of grounding that I'm experiencing with hearing the story. It's just like that truth of movement, I suppose. I love it. I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, it was just interesting to observe it because I was doing a cat sit by Hampstead Heath, and they have a gorgeous house, and it's right next to the woodland, so it's beautiful inside. You have to walk through the woods to get to the bus stop, so it was just like, oh, this is gorgeous, and the sun was shining. It was a lovely day. I wasn't thinking about COVID. I wasn't thinking about masks, as I very rarely do, unless we're talking about it on the podcast. But so when he first came up, I was looking at him blankly for a second, kind of going, why would you say that? That's so strange. It just didn't compute at all. And then it went, right, okay, it's because this weird thing that people do. But just to observe him there, that kind of, because he shrunk into himself, he was really, really fearful. And it was kind of this folding in protectively. And now I'd imagine completely the opposite, sort of, oh, yes, I'm out here in the woodland. Look at my energy's big. This is gorgeous. I'm one with the trees.
Especially when you waved at him afterwards. Yeah.
It was like a proper, hi, big smile.
Like you were old friends. You're like, oh, I remember you.
We just remember. But it just shows that it can really constrict you, because just looking at the way it looked to me as well was he put this big shield up, so it's kind of his bubble went up, and I just thought, oh, that's so sad for you, because you're not feeling the sun anymore, and you're not feeling the trees, and you're just trying to constrain yourself into this tiny little space. And that's what fear does. It just cuts you off from everything, because you're just stuck in that fear moment, and all your truth, in inverted commas, is this fear. And because it's not real, and because it's fabricated and it's just an illusion, it's something your mind has just created, it just takes you so far away from anything that's in the present, anything that's happening now. It takes you away from enjoying or being at one with everything that's happening now, and just kind of pushes you into this tiny little space of mind games or mind fuckery, which is a horrible place to be. And you just reinforce it with more and more layers of fear, so... Yeah, why would I don't want to go back there. I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, no, I get this kind of image of climbing deep into the mind. So like, say, like you'd be in your body, but then you climb deep and deeper into your mind. I feel it like moving closer and closer to the front of your head, and you're almost like paving yourself in behind you with all of this fear that you can't find the way back out of your mind. That's the image that I got when you were speaking, and I'm just like, oh yeah, it's not a great place to be. No. And it's such a reaction in the world that we live in now. It's just, I feel like a very normal, or it's seen as a very normal thing to do, is to be in the state of fear, constant worry, always planning. Can't just be present. But I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that. We know that, right? So it's by design, I would say. It doesn't make it any nicer to experience, though. So.
Yeah, it's true. And it's what's happening now, this fear of COVID. Oh, sorry, I can't even say that in a normal voice because it's just so ridiculous. But it's just an exaggeration or an exacerbated version of what people go through all the time anyway. It's just fear of the future, fear of this. What if I don't make mortgage payments? What if I can't, pay for my car? What if this? What if that? And this whole fear of COVID, people shying away from each other or jumping back and what have you. You'd kind of think that the fear of catching COVID, in inverted commas, when they finally catch it, because people do, because the fear of something will sometimes bring it towards you much faster, they then get ill. You'd think that would free them from it. So it's like, well, okay, now I've been ill, I've had it, I'm now free from that fear. But it makes it worse. So people who've had it, they come down with essentially bad flu for a week or 10 days or whatever it is, recover, takes a while to recover, as it does for flu. They get even more paranoid. And it's like, well, think about your biology, in that you've now contracted some illness. You've now built up immunity to that illness. You're not going to get it again. So why are you even more fearful now? And it's just crazy. It's almost, I don't know, it's just, like fear itself, it just doesn't make sense. It's completely irrational. So this thinking, it's just nonsensical. It's, it's laughable. If you kind of laid it out logically and kind of said to somebody who hadn't experienced the past 2 years, right, so this person thinks this, and this, and they're doing this, and this. the person you're explaining it to would go, are they fucking mental? Because it's crazy. It doesn't make sense at all. But that's what fear does. It just drives you into this weird little bubble of nothing making sense, but all you're protecting is your safety, in inverted commas, whether it's the safety of, being stoned alive by a public audience, which didn't happen to me, or whatever it is you're fearful of. It's so much energy being used to push against something that hasn't happened, may never happen, and really only lives as a figment of your imagination, because you've created it. Until it happens, it's just a figment of your imagination. So how much power are you giving to your imagination? Why not use that imagination, that incredible power of your imagination, to create something brilliant, something amazing, something the opposite of fear? If you use that much power and focus and energy on creating love and community and all of these things, wow, your life would be exponentially so much better. Yeah.
I think there's like a certain level of addiction maybe to fear, like feeling a certain way. It's that familiarity. It's like, oh, well, this is different. Even if it's better, sometimes it's just not necessarily, easier to fall back into something. I feel like once you establish a new state, sometimes it's more difficult to maintain because it's not something that's not familiar to you. And then you're like not surprised when you don't default back to your old state. But there is this lack of recognition that states are constantly shifting. People are just convinced that their state that they were in most of the time is like who they are, I guess, is an over-identification with it. And I feel like you could speak about this a little bit because I feel like this is very much my own trap. So it's just being like, oh yeah, this is familiar. This is, me, but that's not the case.
Yeah, I think it's the familiarity, as you say, because it's something that and you can understand, even though you are in that state of fear. I mean, part of the addiction, I guess, is to that as well, because it's a heightened emotion, and sometimes people look for these heightened emotions. It's like, that fear that you have when you go on a roller coaster. It's like kind of, oh my God, I'm going to die, even though I know I'm not going to die, or I hope I'm not going to die, but oh my God, the fear. People like that kind of heightened drama. People like drama. People like to create drama when it doesn't exist, because again, drama is so often a figment of the imagination. But it's that kind of, oh yeah, I feel really alive because everything's really traumatic, and everything's scary.
In those instances of drama, or where that state is created, I feel like it does bring people to be very present, because this is where the action's happening now. You know what I mean? So it's like not the best way to get present by causing a sense of drama, but I feel like there is some sort of a connection of, the truth aspect of the type of presence that people are actually truly desire, which they're probably unaware of, and that like a connection to that desire to create drama or be part of drama or be involved in drama or aware of drama, because there's something where that brings them more here. That's the feeling that I get from that.
Is it that they're more present than here, or are they kind of more focused in the drama, so they've come to that pinpointedness of the drama? Because if they were present in here, the drama wouldn't exist and the fear wouldn't exist, so I can understand what you're saying, in that it kind of brings you to that clarity of focus to some extent. But to me, that's not being present, that's being in a heightened state of drama. It's kind of, it's like a more pure, in inverted commas, state of drama and fear, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is like you said, with that focus, there's some level of focus instead of them being, in the future or the past. There's still like some sort of focus, more of a narrowing in on a specific thing, which I think kind of gives them a sense, not in a true way necessarily, but like it kind of evokes a similar feeling, because they have that focus there, which normally they don't when they're seeking or searching for drama.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying, but to me, and I guess it's just perception or wording or whatever you want to call it, but to me, that's more like finding the control in the drama and the story, and the fear. It's kind of like I have some semblance of control here because I'm so pinpointed in it, if that makes sense, which in some ways to me is kind of even less present because you're trying to control things or you're trying to manipulate things or you're trying to you've created a story and now you're trying to change the story. So it's like, oh, what's the point in doing that? That's really strange. So because to me, it's kind of when I feel that I'm really present or in this second, this very second, there's absolute peace and stillness. There's no drama. There's no fear. There's no worry. There's nothing. And when I see somebody who's in that pinpointedness, it's almost like it looks like there's a big swirling kind of cloud of lots of different gray and black lines around them, almost like a lace, black lace or some kind of, lace in motion. And what they're doing when they're getting to that pinpointedness is they're gathering it all in the middle and squeezing it hard so it becomes almost like a column. So they have some semblance of control. It's kind of like, right, I'm holding it now. I've got it kind of thing. Whereas the rest of it's just swirling around them. So to me, being present is letting go of it all and it disappears. So there's nothing there. There's no solidity or column in the middle. It's just emptiness, so it's kind of the opposite of what they think they're doing. But I understand what you're saying. Right. I can see what you're saying from your perspective as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking in terms of instead of their mind being other places, it actually brings their mind to focus on something that's occurring in front of them is kind of what I was thinking. But I was also, it's funny because when you were speaking, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when you're talking about the person, it seems like it's like this someone who's like almost drowning in the drama. For me, I feel like I was looking at someone who might have been like more of an observer of the drama. You know how people watch TV shows because it's the drama, but you get like pulled in to be there because the action's happening right in front of you. I don't know.
yeah, I know what you mean. It's different perspectives of perceptions or whatever you call it. Yeah,
it's definitely not the pure sense of it, but I think that sometimes it elicits an experience that's closer to what is real. Or mimics it in a way?
I think it's more of a mimicking. It's not it's not even closer to me. It doesn't look like it's close.
Yeah.
It's a pretend. It's a mind-induced.
Definitely in the mind.
Yeah. But it's funny, isn't it? It's the kind of the control aspect, the wanting to create a sea of chaos, which is the drama and the fear, then wanting to control it. And it's kind of like, well, why would you create it in the first place if you're going to try and control? I don't know. It just seems funny to me. It's such a contradiction in terms, it's create this chaos that's uncontrollable and then go, I've got it. I'm controlling it. I'm holding the reins of the invisible horse, it's just funny.
I can't speak a lot to it because I feel like most of the time drama's like, that's the last thing I want to be involved in. If anyone wants to talk about like things that, I don't know, there's things that seem like trivial to me, but it's like, would be sort of like relationship drama, things between them and their friends or them and their family. And I'm like, okay. It's like, I can't, and I've always been like this. And it's kind of difficult to deal with because that's a normal thing in a lot of people's lives is for them to, have some sort of drama going on, some sort of situations, and then they look to their friends for sympathy or empathy, some sort of compassion, and I just really had no desire to engage in any of it. I was just like, I'm sorry, I know what you want me to say and how you'd like me to interact with you, but I can't bring myself to do it. I guess I'm sorry.
Yeah. Or am I just saying that? I think I'm just saying that. Yeah.
Kind of like, I'm sorry I won't meet you there. Like, I'm sorry I'm refusing to meet you in your drama. I'm just won't do it.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it, the drama? Because I think drama can happen in so many different ways, relationshiply and in one's own head, so I think it's quite interesting. I mean, where I work at the moment, there is a lot of drama that comes in because people just like to create all these scenarios and situations, and it's always traumatizing or, oh my God, I've got to do this now, and and because I'm at work, there has to be that semblance of professionalism at least, and I'm finding it interesting to kind of navigate it, in that sometimes my natural instinct is to go, oh, for fuck's sake, there's nothing at all important about that, for fuck's sake, but I try and stop myself from doing that because I still need to eat. So I'd kind of like to keep my job. But then other times a similar situation can happen and I'll just feel huge compassion for this person who's waffling on about shit in front of me, like today is a good case in point, somebody came in and they had this really long-winded story that their dog had been sick, but it's now better, but then got sick again. And then their husband was sick and they were sick and they were feeling traumatized and blah, blah, blah. And the story went on for about 15 minutes. And I'm sort of waiting for them to go, I'm here because, it's kind of, okay. And in the, other times or on another day, I might have started feeling a bit impatient or just tried to rush them along or whatever it was. But today I was like, no, you can talk as much as you like. I don't care. It doesn't actually touch me. It's fine. You'll get to the point eventually. And if you don't, it doesn't matter either because you clearly need to talk. And it has nothing to do with me, in that it doesn't touch me. I'm not affected by it. And it seems to help you. I don't know if it does or not, but you're talking at me. So I'm guessing there's some response you're getting. I don't know. And I, in some ways, maybe I'm doing that job just to help me find that balance. I don't know. But I don't know. I'm not kind of really thought about it much, but it's just interesting, So, yeah, because people come in and tell their COVID stories a lot, and that they've had their jabs and they've had this and blah, blah, whatever. I guess I don't know where I was going with this exactly, but it's just interesting to sort of see that the stiller I am or the more surrendered I am, the less what they say bothers me, in that if, for example, I've had a really bad night's sleep, which happens sometimes, and I've had 47 different people telling me they've just had their second jab, and I'm going, okay, thank you. That's why I'm feeling so crap, then I might be more reactively to this kind of thing. But it seems that this week, and I know it's only Tuesday, but this week so far, this long week that we're having, it seems to just be passing over me, in that I'm just kind of like, oh, right, okay, yeah, fine, And then sometimes things move through, like with that guy on the pavement, and I start laughing, but it just feels like it's just moving through as opposed to rising up somehow. I don't know. It's just an interesting observation, or it was interesting to me anyway. I don't know if anyone else is interested, but I found it interesting.
Yeah, no, I find things like that interesting as well. I think maybe you'll just, if it was a different person, even if it was you on the same day, maybe you would have reacted differently because it could just be whatever that individual needed in whatever reaction that you were giving. And it happened to be that this person, all you needed to do was wait,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It's funny. I never really think of it in those terms, from this perspective of, my response being what somebody else might need. But I guess everything is what it is. So it's perfectly perfect, in that whatever happens. But that was just so...
No, that's pretty much
sorry, go ahead.
What it is, though. Yeah. No, absolutely, because you're saying what it is what it is, and it's perfect as it is. And I'd say that's exactly it, is I think, or I feel like your response to her was perfect as it was. And you can tell, right, based on your neutrality in the instance.
Yeah, so. No, that's true. Yeah, because it is interesting sometimes, when emotions will come up. Well, not emotions. Well, yeah, I guess emotions. See, I don't even know terminology anymore. But, so if sometimes I'll feel anger coming through or I'll feel whatever coming through. It's interesting to watch because it's like, oh, because a lot of the time it doesn't feel like it's me. And then sometimes I know it is definitely me. And the times when I know it's definitely me is when it's very, very close and it's kind of like, yes, I want to kill you. I want to kill you, kind of thing. But then other times it's kind of like anger will move through and it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, okay, it's gone. So yeah, it's just, I don't know, just observation is interesting. Who knows?
Yeah. I know I definitely find it interesting, but that's because I'm also interested in exploring consciousness, right? That's kind of what we do with Aratima. So I'm like, I love hearing about this.
Well, I do sometimes think, some of the things that I say on our podcasts, maybe I need to get a bit more practical with it because sometimes they can be really sort of, so, everything's just perfect as it is and it's just what it is and it's it, that's it. Okay, end of, bye, kind of thing. It's not very helpful for anyone.
I mean, it's true though. And I can feel it when you say it, that it's something that it's not just words for you. So that in and of itself, I think, is great for people to listen to, because there's got to be a transmission in there. But yeah, if there's more words, where you can break it down and make it more practical and accessible to people who haven't had that knowing or that realization, I'm sure that would be great. I'd love to hear it. I'm sure other people would too.
Maybe that's the next thing to work on. Stop being so vague. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure it'll all come, part of the process.
No, absolutely.
Something I wanted to ask you, though, when you're talking about speaking on the call with the Ratima, because you can see things, what is it like to talk on a call? Like, can you see the other people who are on the call as well?
Yeah.
No, okay. Because for me, it'd probably be like this, just me and you talking or something. I might have a fear sense of other people being there, but I don't know that how much I'd actually be able to sense them or see them or know them,
No, it was really interesting doing that, because even when you ring in and you're participating, you're on mute, it's very different. It's a very different energy. But being on there live and unmuted the whole time that she was on there, it was like I was standing next to her, not that I, from the energetic perspective, but it was fascinating to see, because we speak about this often, but she's just this luminous presence. So it's just light. It's like standing in the sun, And so I was there on the call, just feeling like I was having electric shock treatment, and you're kind of like, oh my God, the energy is so high. And then I could see and feel everyone else on the call. And it was interesting feeling everyone's energies, because they're all different. Everyone has different energies, but they all have different dominances, and the way that they interact with the Ratima is very interesting as well. And seeing people as they came on the call to speak and all their different energies was fascinating. It was so interesting. Some people came on and they curled into themselves and kind of did a sort of subservient bow kind of thing. Certain things came up very strongly in some people as well, like Ratima would bring things to the surface, but so in some people there was this massive, victim energy that came up. In other people there was this kind of strong pushback, and then, different aspects of personality came up, different lights came up. And it's amazing, just watching her work is always just an incredible honor and privilege, because she's just flawless. It's like a maestro, so with every single person that she was speaking to, you could see she works with everyone on the call in the background in different ways. It's almost like the background orchestra, and then when the individual callers come on, it's like the soloist, so it's kind of more in the foreground. And as these things come up, so like with some people, whatever it was, let's say it was victim energy, was bubbling, she'd bring it up really strongly in them, so it came to the surface. And they could either be aware of it or not, they could choose, but it was there very, very strongly. So they had the choice to let it go in that moment. Some did, some didn't. I'm not saying that everyone was feeling victim-y, but that's just an example. Some had all of the things they attached to the victimhood. So there was some guilt, there was some sadness, there was some self-pity, all sorts of stuff. It wasn't all just negative emotions, obviously, and there was positive ones as well. But like watching her with those all, it was kind of, she just shined so much light on them. And depending on who she was talking to and what they were feeling in that moment, the energies were treated differently. So she would either bring them out in people and kind of pull them apart and kind of go, here you go, you can now let go of this if you want to. Or she'd go, okay, you need to work on that, and kind of bring it more coalesced so they could be more aware of it and kind of bring it to consciousness. Or she sometimes just flicked things out of people's awareness without them even knowing. So she'd be talking to them, they'd be chatting away about whatever. She'd be going, ping pong, let's remove a bit of that. That's coming out. Okay, let's bring this up to 4D. Okay, let's just move a bit of this round here. I'm just going to reformat you, and I'm bringing your soul into your body, and I'm going to do this, this, and this. Right, okay, so you want to talk about your dog? Yeah, that's fine. Kind of thing. It's amazing. It's amazing how she does it. And then as that person would then get off the call, she'd still be working with them, and then the next person would come on and be like, okay, the next soloist. And then it was just incredible watching her work and just being able to witness it from a different perspective, as in next to her or beside her, or not beside her obviously, but just from a different angle of not being one of the callers in, was just such an honor. It was amazing, really amazing. And then at the end, when she did the big blessing, it was just, she helped us all. It was just, she shed shitloads of stuff for all of us. And for humanity, this is the thing, she always does this. She works everything she does is on a global scale. So everything she does to help one person helps everybody. It really ripples out so strongly. And I've never seen that in a spiritual teacher or healer before, because they will either focus on the one person or a certain group, but there's always boundaries to it. There's always limitations. But because Aratima is so very multidimensional, she works on so many levels. So it's, the individual, globally, collectively, historically, on every single dimension exists, while talking about something completely different at the time. It's amazing. It's like she's got 12 hands, she kind of, it's just such a privilege to watch her work. It's incredible. And that's something that I wanted to say on the call, but instead I probably talked about carrots or something, I don't know.
Honestly, I can't tell you. I don't remember much of the call. I do want to go back and re-listen to it because I was working at the time, but thank you for sharing that. That's amazing because I can't see those things, and so thank you. It's just hearing you explain it, and I don't know, it's just awesome, really. And I feel like through your explanation is like I could kind of see it through you a little bit. But it's nothing that I would know on my own, so, not consciously anyway.
But I'm sure there's awareness on some level, I think, with that, because another thing she does that's so incredible, and I know this isn't something else I wanted to say on the call, but I'm glad Louise did, actually. I think Louise talked about it, but the way she meets everyone where they are. So like, let's say somebody's in 3D, really densely stuck in 3D, and they're fearful, let's say, they're just surrounded in this bubble of fear. She'll meet that person exactly where they are and raise them up, while at the same time meeting somebody in 12D who's up there and going, okay, you need a little tweak there. Okay, there we go, we'll do that. Or then she'll kind of use whatever voice, energy, tools, everything that is modulated to perfectly help that person wherever they are. And she can do this simultaneously. And it's incredible, because it's just amazing to watch and to feel and to witness, and all of this happening at the same time. And we're just so blessed to be alive in this time that Aratima is here, That was our conversation on fear. We discussed fear just being a thought, an illusion, and that all you sometimes fear is fear itself. We talked about Aratima's Wisdom Life School course that's just started. We'll put a link to the introductory call below. If you like what you hear, please do click the bell icon, subscribe, like, and share with all your friends. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye.